Millionaire calls off wedding after son reveals shocking secret about the bride at the altar. The sun was setting over Malibu, casting a golden glow on the sprawling estate where the society wedding of the season was unfolding. Billionaire Robert Thompson, the man whose name was whispered in boardrooms and tabloids alike, stood at the altar, surrounded by lush white roses and crystal chandeliers, swaying gently in the ocean breeze. Cameras flashed, guests murmured, and Amanda Lewis, Instagram's hottest influencer with over 10 million followers, stood radiant in her designer gown, smiling like she owned the moment. But then the world tilted. Out of nowhere, Lucas, Robert's son, tall and tense, stormed down the aisle, his face pale and his hands trembling. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Everyone, stop! You don't know who she really is." Gasps exploded through the crowd. Amanda's perfect smile faltered. The string quartet halted mid-note, leaving a chilling silence behind. Lucas H. There are emails, secret meetings, proof that show her real plan isn't love. It's something much darker. His words sliced through the glamorous air like a knife. The guests leaned in, hungry for the scandal. Robert's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. His chest tightened so much it felt like a brick was pressing on his lungs. Shouts and whispers flared up around him, some shocked, others furious. The carefully planned celebration teetered on the edge of ruin. Then, Sarah, a housekeeper who had seen the Thompsons through their highs and lows, stepped forward, quietly but firmly. Her eyes locked with Amanda's, full of fiery conviction. "You think you can fool him," Sarah said softly but sharply, "but I know the truth about you. I've been watching, listening. You're not here for love, not for family." Her words echoed in the sudden stillness, throwing fuel on the blaze. Amanda's smile snapped. Her eyes flashed with something cold, not love, but calculation, as she faced the warm, steady defiance in Sarah's gaze. Robert looked from his son, who was shaking with fear and hurt, to Amanda, whose mask had cracked right in front of everyone. The crowd buzzed with confusion and disbelief. Some guests whispered that Robert was blinded by his heart. Others sided with Lucas's fury. Was Robert choosing love or loyalty? The question hung thick in the humid air. The wedding, once meant to be a celebration, was now a battlefield of secrets, lies, and shattered dreams. Robert's hand trembled as he reached for Amanda's. But doubt gnawed at him. Could he trust the woman who smiled so flawlessly under the glare of thousands, when behind the perfect image, scars of betrayal were waiting to tear everything apart? Silence stretched moments, fragile as glass ready to break. The wedding guests held their breath, caught between shock and curiosity, knowing that what came next could change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The silence hung like a heavy fog, wrapping around everyone present. Uncertainty scratched at Robert's insides as he searched Amanda's face for a hint. But before Robert could make sense of it all, an unexpected entity broke through the tension. A loud crash resonated from the back of the estate. Glass shattered. A frantic man burst through the grand double doors, breathless and wild-eyed. It was Tom, Amanda's older brother, looking like he'd just run a marathon. "Stop! You can't marry her!" he yelled, pain etched across his face. The guests turned, confusion morphing into shock. What was he doing here? Amanda's face turned ashen, her mask slipping entirely. "Tom, no!" she cried. But he was already charging toward the altar, desperation fueling every step. Robert's heart thudded painfully against his chest. "Who are you?" he demanded, aware that everyone was now watching, every eye glued to this intrusion. "I'm her brother. You don't know who she is." Tom's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and anger. "She's not who you think she is. She's—" But before he could finish, Amanda stepped forward, her voice laced with venom. "Shut up, Tom. You don't know what you're talking about." Lucas glanced between them, his fists clenching. This was spiraling, and he could feel the weight of all eyes, the murmurs starting to rise again. "What does he mean? What are you hiding, Amanda?" With every heartbeat, the tension thickened. People leaned forward on their chairs, breaths held in anticipation, as if the very air crackled with the unknown. Robert's mind raced, wondering what more could be unearthed. "Tom, please, this is not the time," Amanda insisted, pleading with her brother. But the more she pleaded, the more the crowd buzzed, like bees agitated by a sudden storm. Tom, chest heaving, pressed on. "Not the time? This is exactly the time. You think you can just walk away from the past? You think I would let that happen? You've ruined lives, Amanda." Gasps filled the air. Amanda's eyes widened in a mix of horror and rage. "What are you talking about? You don't even know." But suddenly, a blood-curdling scream split the tension. It was Sarah. "No, no, this can't be." The housekeeper's face turned ghostly pale as she backed away, her hand flying to her mouth, panic radiating from her like a trembling wave. "What is it, Sarah?" Robert asked, urgency creeping into his voice. With trembling fingers, she uncovered her phone from her pocket and showed it to the gathering. "I found out last week. This was the email she sent." The screen lit up with a chilling message that read, "The plan is in motion. Soon they'll all be gone and the fortune will be ours." The crowd gasped collectively, the dramatic shift ripping through them like an electric shock. Amanda froze, horror washing over her features, the calculated glimmer in her eyes extinguished. Robert's world tilted sideways. What is this?" he stammered, a cold fear gripping him. A betrayal deeper than anything he had imagined was slithering into the daylight. Thunder rolled inside him as pieces fell into place, reshaping everything he thought he knew. What kind of game had Amanda been playing? The crowd shifted nervously, eyes darting between Amanda's crumbling facade and Lucas's realization of the true depth of the betrayal. This wasn't just secrets of deception. This was orchestrated chaos. Who could he trust? A new silence fell, heavier than before, infused with absolute dread. As Robert looked at the broken trust around him, one question loomed large. Had he been nothing but a pawn in her elaborate game? The tension felt electric, leaving everyone breathless, anticipating what might come next, what unraveling still awaited in the shadows. The silence thickened, a suffocating blanket smothering every gasp and murmur. Robert's heart hammered against his ribcage, each beat calling for answers he didn't have. The phone screen glowed ominously, and he felt a chilling dread creep into his bones. Amanda stood frozen, shadows flickering across her face, the mask of confidence shattered. "Is this true?" Robert's voice trembled. "What have you done?" All eyes were on Amanda now. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The crowd pulsed with anticipation, whispers turning into a low roar. Sarah's face was a canvas of horror, knowing she had unearthed something far too dark for this moment. "Stop!" Amanda finally shrieked, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. But the gasp that followed her words sent shivers down everyone's spine. Lucas took a step forward, brows furrowed, rage boiling. You were planning this all along, weren't you? Use my father. Take everything. No, she shouted. But the desperation was evident, panic swirling behind her eyes. And then, just as the tide of chaos seemed to peak, another figure rushed forward from the crowd. A woman with wild, tangled hair and eyes wide with fear. She burst through the crowd, breath sizzling with urgency. "Stop! You can't let this happen!" Robert squinted, struggling to place her. "Who are you?" I'm Jessica, Amanda's best friend," she stammered, struggling to catch her breath. "She's not who you think she is. None of us are." "What do you mean?" Robert barked, frustration boiling. "Isn't she supposed to be the one with the truth?" But Jessica continued, something more raw and vivid breaking free from her lips. "I saw everything, the emails, the plans. She wasn't just in it for your money, Robert. She's been working for someone else. Someone who wants to bring you down." A wave of confusion washed over the wedding guests. Heads turned, eyebrows raised, whispers growing. Robert felt the air thicken around him, like a storm on the brink of unleashing chaos. "What are you saying?" "I don't know all the details, but she's been doing this for years, manipulating everyone. The posts, the parties, everything was a cover-up. It was never about love. It's revenge." Amanda turned white, her facade crumbling under the weight of Jessica's words. The crowd shifted, rumbles of disbelief circling like a whirlwind. "That's absurd," Amanda shouted, her voice trembling. "You're lying." "Am I?" Jessica snapped, stepping closer, grounding herself in truth. "Look around you. How many have suffered because of her? This was all calculated, the perfect way to tear the Thompson family apart." Robert's mind reeled, pieces swirling together like a dark puzzle. Was there truth in Jessica's claims? He felt the walls closing in, the faces of his friends and family merging into a blur. Beneath this chaotic revelation lay a word he never expected: betrayal. "Stop this right now," Robert yelled, his voice rising above the fray. The crowd hushed momentarily, hanging on his every word. "If what you're saying is true, we need to expose it. Right here, right now." But then an unexpected sound echoed through the estate, a low tremor beneath everyone's feet. The ground shook, but deep rumble erupting from the very core. Cries of confusion erupted as chandeliers swayed above, falling to the floor with shattering clinks. Then the light dimmed, plunging everything into ominous shadow. And just as suddenly as it happened, a blinding flash illuminated the space. In the center of the crowd, the figure emerged, cloaked in darkness but sparkling with intent. It was a man, his face obscured, but the look in his eyes burned with an unmistakable fury. "Enough," he bellowed, and everyone turned, heartbeats racing, knowing they were standing on the precipice of something terrifying. The truth cannot remain buried any longer. And just like that, the tension erupted, the fabric of their lives unraveling, secrets aching to be revealed. Who was this man? What did he know? With horror creeping into their hearts, the crowd felt the weight of the moment as darkness gathered, hearts racing at the prospect of the revelations about to unfold. But just like that, everything felt uncertain and raw, shattering any illusion they once held close. The tension in the room was palpable, thick as smoke, everyone hanging on the hooded figure's words. Robert's heart raced with confusion, anger, and a flickering hope that maybe this was finally the moment where truth would be revealed. "What do you mean?" he pressed, his voice rising, echoing the doubt swelling inside him. The cloaked man stepped forward, the light catching his face just enough. "I'm here to expose Amanda," he said, voice fierce but hoarse. "But first, you must understand, the truth is far more complex than you know." Amanda recoiled, the color draining from her face. "No, you can't." But he cut her off. "You don't get to silence me anymore. This is about your father, Amanda. You think this game is about love? No, it's about revenge for what he did." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Whispers spiraled. Confusion mixed with a hint of excitement crackling in the air. Robert's expression twisted, grappling with the revelation. "Her father?" he questioned, mind racing. "What does he have to do with any of this?" The cloaked man straightened, his posture both defiant and desperate. "He took everything from us. And Amanda, she's been playing you all along. This was never about marrying you. It was about bringing down the Thompsons, about getting revenge for the past." Robert felt the world tilt. He glanced at Lucas, whose face mirrored his turmoil. "What does he mean, Dad? This doesn't make sense." "Of course it doesn't, because you don't know the whole story." Amanda's voice trembled with a mix of anger and fear. "I did what I had to do to survive. You don't understand what he put me through." But before she could gather her thoughts, the cloaked man stepped closer, urgency replacing anger. "You think you can walk away from this, Amanda? He's coming for you." Then, without warning, the ground shook again. This time, it was stronger. The walls vibrated, glasses rattled, and someone screamed. Panic erupted among the guests as people stumbled, a wave of chaos crashing down. "Get down!" Robert shouted, pushing Lucas to the floor as chandeliers swung violently over their heads. The crowd surged towards the exit, confusion morphing into terror. In the fray, something shiny glinted amidst the falling debris. Robert squinted, and in an instant, realization slammed into him. An engagement ring, pristine and untouched, glittering in the chaos. It wasn't Amanda's. It belonged to someone else entirely. The cloaked man turned, horror etching his features. "No, not now," he yelled, suddenly retreating. He scanned the crowd, eyes wide, a flicker of recognition flaring in his gaze. "Where is she? Where's Emily?" Everyone froze. All eyes darted around, glancing at one another in disbelief. "Who's Emily?" Robert's voice came out sharp, cutting through the rising noise. "That's the question, isn't it?" The cloaked man's expression twisted as he looked around, panic mingling with determination. "You all think you know Amanda. But Emily? She's the reason everything is happening. And if we don't find her now..." The air froze. Realization crashed down, heavier than the chandelier dangling above. Who was Emily? An ally? An enemy? Had they been living a lie all along? As the tremors settled, the crowd stood around the altar, breathless, hearts racing, enveloped in a fog of confusion and dread. The wedding was over, but the game had just begun. One question lingered. Was Amanda the villain, or was someone else pulling the strings? And in that moment, Robert felt the first bite of betrayal. His world was unraveling, and each thread led to a mystery he never expected to encounter, deepening the chasm of what was real and what was mere illusion. The truth was out there, waiting, and it was darker than any of them had prepared for. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the scene bound in uncertainty and fear. Robert's heart raced, his pulse pounding in his ears. These revelations, Amanda's father, this cloaked stranger, everything felt like a punch to the gut. The crowd buzzed with whispers, confusion swirling like a storm. "Who is Emily?" Robert demanded, eyes locked on the cloaked man. "What does she have to do with all this?" But before the man could respond, the earth beneath them shook violently again. People screamed, stumbling backward, chairs crashing to the ground. Robert felt panic clawing at his throat, overwhelming him. He held Lucas close, shielding him with his body as chaos erupted. "Amanda!" Robert shouted, searching for her amongst the swirling mass of bodies. Fear cut through him like a knife as he caught a glimpse of her. Her face twisted in terror, eyes darting around. "Everyone, get out now," she yelled, her voice breaking through the noise. "We need to leave." But the cloaked man pressed on, urgency spilling from him. "It's not safe. She's still out there." "Who's out there?" Lucas shouted, fear threading through his voice. "What are you talking about?" Just then, a loud crash resonated as a piece of the ceiling collapsed, raining down plaster and dust. The crowd was on its feet, pushing and shoving, trying to escape the chaos. Robert felt the heat of panic rising. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a fight for survival. Out of the cloud of dust, a high-pitched voice pierced through the cacophony. "Stop! Everyone stop!" The crowd froze. It was a woman, standing bravely at the center, her arms raised like a lifeguard calling off a wave. "Emily!" the cloaked man shouted, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" "But why?" he pleaded, desperation etched across his face. The joy of revelation quickly turned to horror for the crowd, confusion rippling through them. "Because," Emily shrieked, "I'm the one you've been looking for. I've been hiding all this time." As she stepped into the light, her face turned pale and ghostly. A chill swept through the crowd. Robert felt the air thicken as she continued. "I know everything. It was never just about Amanda. It was about revenge for us all. I'm her twin sister." The revelation hit like a freight train. Robert's mind reeled, disbelief crowding his thoughts. Twin sisters? This was a plot twist that flipped the entire narrative on its head. Gasps echoed among the guests, each face tinged with shock. "What are you talking about?" Amanda stammered, voice trembling, eyes darting between her sister and the crowd. "I was the one who got left behind," Emily explained, tears glistening in her eyes. "I found out what he did to us, how he destroyed our lives, and I took steps to get back at him. You were just a piece of the plan. Robert, a way to get to them." "So you used me?" Robert's voice cracked, betrayal burning deep within him. "Was anything real?" "I thought I could make things right," Emily sobbed, the weight of her confession hanging in the air like a heavy fog. "I wanted to protect Amanda. But Amanda cut her off, rage spilling over." "Protect me? By lying to me? By manipulating my life?" Emily faltered, the hurt spilling out. "I love you. I thought if I could get close, I could save us both." But it spiraled out of control. A wave of confusion crashed over the guests, uncertainty twisting their expressions. The truth hung heavily in the air, each revelation tugging at the frayed edges of their reality. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the ground shook again. Darkness enveloped the estate, panic rising to a frenzy. The guests screamed, trying to find safety. The walls pulsed, urging them to escape. In the midst of the chaos, Lucas shouted, "We need to get out of here." But Robert was frozen, eyes transfixed on Emily's face, knowing the truth was buried beneath layers of deception and betrayal. Just then, the cloaked man stepped forward, eyes blazing with a mix of anger and fear. "If we don't stop this now, everything will fall apart. You have to trust me." But who could they trust now? As the room spun with confusion and fear, Robert faced a crushing uncertainty. The truth had changed everything, and as the ground shook once more, they stood at the precipice of disaster, the looming questions burning brighter than ever. What would happen next? Who were truly the monsters in this story? And as darkness enveloped them, the only choice left was to move forward into chaos, uncertain of what awaited on the other side. The chaos folded in on itself, a suffocating blanket of fear and confusion. Robert could barely breathe. His heart raced as he tried to piece together the broken fragments of truth spilling from Emily's lips. Twin sisters? Revenge? It was too much. The guests were still reeling, eyes darting between the sisters, confusion morphing into panic. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently once more, and the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced menacingly around the room. Robert's mind grappled with the crushing weight of betrayal, but now there was no time for thoughts. The moment demanded action. "Emily, please," Amanda shouted, her voice tearing through the chaos. "What do you mean revenge? You can't just walk in here and claim all this." But just as the words left Amanda's mouth, a wall near the back of the estate gave way with a horrific cracking sound. Dust plumed into the air as a massive chunk of concrete broke free, tumbling towards the guests. Screams erupted. Robert shoved Lucas to the ground, covering him as the debris rained down. A sharp pain struck his shoulder as a shard grazed him, but he didn't care. All that mattered was Lucas's safety. "Get out, now!" he yelled. People surged toward the exit, the chaos unfolding like a wave crashing onto shore. But in the frenzy, Robert caught sight of something flickering from the shadows. A bright light pulsated against the dimness, growing steadily brighter. "Look!" Lucas shouted, pointing. "What is that?" From the corner of the room, a spotlight emerged, illuminating a figure cloaked in darkness, distorted but undeniably familiar. The figure stepped forward, revealing not just anyone, but Amanda's father, John Lewis. He wore a twisted smile, eyes glinting with a manic intensity. "No," Amanda stammered, disbelief frozen on her face. "I've been watching, my dear," he said, voice smooth but laced with malice. "And I see you've made quite the mess for yourself." Shock rippled through the crowd, confusion turning to horror. What was he doing here? This was not how the story was supposed to unfold. Robert's throat tightened. Betrayal seems to seep from every direction. "Why are you doing this?" Emily howled, stepping protectively in front of Amanda. "You're supposed to be dead!" Gasps echoed as the crowd reeled at her words. Dead? What was happening? Robert's insides churned as he multitudes of secrets layered upon each other, building a fortress of confusion and disbelief. "Oh, darling, I never died." John chuckled, a sound like scratching nails against glass, sending shivers down Robert's spine. "I've been biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment to settle the score." "Score?" Robert's voice was rising, anger coursing through him. "You're the real villain here?" John laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "This was never about your precious wedding, Robert. It's about the empire I lost, about revenge for my family. And you, my dear, are merely a stepping stone." As the words sunk in, Robert's mind raced. Was Amanda part of this twisted game? All those romantic moments, those shared dreams, were they lies crafted to feed this insatiable vengeance? The noise swelled, a massive crescendo of confessions and accusations, crashing against the walls. "Get back!" Someone shouted as a piece of glass fell, shattering New Emily's feet, narrowly missing her. "Stay away from them," Lucas shouted, stepping up, defiance burning in his eyes. But John just smiled, a sinister twist lurking at the corners of his lips. "Oh, I'm afraid it's too late for that. This entire charade, well, it's just the beginning." As the crowd pushed toward the exits, the air thickened with dread. Robert could barely process it all as John's presence wrapped around them like a creeping fog. What could he do? How could he protect Lucas and the others from this man who had hidden in the shadows, pulling strings like a puppet master? In the chaos, Robert felt something slip from his grasp. Trust, love. Everything he thought he knew was crumbling around him, leaving nothing but uncertainty. As John's laughter echoed through the estate, Robert understood. Whatever happened next would change their lives forever. And as he clung to Lucas, but chilling thought crept in. Was John truly behind everything? Or was there an even darker force lurking in the depths, waiting for the right moment to strike? The questions hung in the air, heavier than the dust swirling around them, leaving Robert aching for answers he might never get. The chaos folded in on itself, a suffocating blanket of fear and confusion. Robert could barely breathe. His heart raced as he tried to piece together the broken fragments of truth spilling from Emily's lips. Twin sisters? Revenge? It was too much. The guests were still reeling, eyes darting between the sisters, confusion morphing into panic. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently once more, and the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced menacingly around the room. Robert's mind grappled with the crushing weight of betrayal. But now there was no time for thoughts. The moment demanded action. "Emily, please," Amanda shouted, her voice tearing through the chaos. "What do you mean, revenge? You can't just walk in here and claim all this." But just as the words left Amanda's mouth, a wall near the back of the estate gave way with a horrific cracking sound. Dust plumed into the air as a massive chunk of concrete broke free, tumbling towards the guests. Screams erupted. Robert shoved Lucas to the ground, covering him as the debris rained down. A sharp pain struck his shoulder as a shard grazed him, but he didn't care. All that mattered was Lucas's safety. "Get out, now!" he yelled. People surged toward the exit, the chaos unfolding like a wave crashing onto shore. But in the frenzy, Robert caught sight of something flickering from the shadows. The bright light pulsated against the dimness, growing steadily brighter. "Look!" Lucas shouted, pointing. "What is that?" From the corner of the room, a spotlight emerged, illuminating a figure cloaked in darkness, distorted but undeniably familiar. The figure stepped forward, revealing not just anyone, but Amanda's father, John Lewis. He wore a twisted smile, eyes glinting with a manic intensity. "No," Amanda stammered, disbelief frozen on her face. "I've been watching, my dear," he said, voice smooth but laced with malice. "And I see you've made quite the mess for yourself." Shock rippled through the crowd, confusion turning to horror. What was he doing here? This was not how the story was supposed to unfold. Robert's throat tightened. Betrayal seemed to seep from every direction. "Why are you doing this?" Emily howled, stepping protectively in front of Amanda. "You're supposed to be dead!" Gasps echoed as the crowd reeled at her words. Dead? What was happening? Robert's insides churned as he mulled over the layers of secrets that had stitched their lives together. "Oh, darling, I never died." John chuckled, a sound like scratching nails against glass, sending shivers down Robert's spine. "I've been biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment to settle the score." "Score?" Robert's voice rose, anger coursing through him. "You're the real villain here." John laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "This was never about your precious wedding, Robert. It's about the empire I lost, about revenge for my family. And you, my dear, are merely a stepping stone." As the words sunk in, Robert felt something shift inside him, an unsettling clarity mingled with fear. The noise swelled, accusations banging against the walls. "Get back!" someone shouted, as a piece of glass fell, shattering near Emily's feet, narrowly missing her. "Stay away from them!" Lucas shouted, stepping up, defiance burning in his eyes. But John just smiled, a sinister twist lurking at the corners of his lips. "Oh, I'm afraid it's too late for that. This entire charade, well, it's just the beginning." His words hung in the air, heavy with dark promise. Just then, the lights flickered again, and everything dimmed. The brief blackness enveloped them, the crowd's murmurs turning to anxious breaths. And suddenly, an ear-splitting crash shattered the silence from behind the grand double doors. They slammed open, revealing a figure drenched in shadows and chaos. It was a woman, wild-eyed, frantic in her movements, as if she had been running for her life. "Megan!" Robert gasped. Recognizing his estranged sister, the one who disappeared years ago. "What are you doing here?" The crowd gasped, stunned, as Megan stepped into the light, a breathless urgency in her eyes. "You have to listen," she cried, voice trembling. "Everything is connected. The danger isn't just John, it's much bigger than we thought." And then she froze, breath hitching, the weight of her revelation pressing down on everyone. "Amanda, you don't know the truth about your mother." The room spiraled into confusion, an avalanche of shock cascading through the guests. Robert's mind raced. The truth about Amanda's mother? Was there more to this twisted family saga than he had realized? "Amanda, listen," Megan continued, taking shaky steps forward. "You've been living a lie. Your mother's secrets run deeper than anything you can imagine. The revenge, it was set in motion long before any of us were born." Robert's heart raced, dread pooling in his stomach. This was not just about a wedding anymore. The very foundation of their relationships was crumbling, their pasts intertwining in a web of deception and darkness. As silence turned to shock, uncertainty filled the air, looming over them like a storm about to break. Who could be trusted? What was real? The weight of hidden truths now felt suffocating. Megan's eyes darted between Amanda and John, fear taking root. "You didn't kill her, did you? This has been a setup all along." In that moment, everything froze. The air crackled with tension, the truth hanging like a loaded gun. What could she mean? Robert felt his heart thundering in his chest, the stakes rising higher. Were they all part of a sick, twisted game laid out by forces they couldn't comprehend? As the truth hung like a dark cloud overhead, Robert knew they were at the brink of something monumental, a revelation that could shatter lives beyond repair. And just like that, the ground shook once more, a tremor of change that threatened to unveil answers wrapped in shadows, pushing them closer to a destiny they never wanted. The room felt like it was closing in, the tension thick and electric. Robert's heart raced as Megan's revelation echoed in his mind. Emily was Amanda's twin sister. The air was stagnant with shock, and the crowd held its breath, sensing they were standing on the edge of something monumental. "A twin?" Amanda repeated, her voice a whisper, barely piercing the din. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Megan, you can't just drop that bombshell and expect everything to be fine," Lucas shouted, his voice shaking with frustration. People murmured, glancing around, and confusion morphed into unease. "And you think I wanted to?" Megan's voice cracked. "This was never just about you, Amanda. I had to protect you from the truth." But just as the words fled Megan's lips, another tremor rippled through the ground. The chandelier shook violently, sending droplets of crystal cascading to the floor. The collective gasp was like a single inhale, everyone sharing the same breath of fear. "Run!" returned Robert's instinct. But before he could reach for Lucas, the ground beneath them groaned ominously, a deep rumble that vibrated in their bones. Suddenly, a flash erupted from the back. The heavy doors burst open, and a blinding light flooded into the room. Everyone squinted, shielding their eyes, caught between sheer terror and curiosity. What could come next? As the brilliance faded, a figure emerged. It was tall and cloaked in confidence. "Stop!" the newcomer shouted, voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. When the light settled, they saw it was a woman wearing a fitted black leather jacket, her features sharp and fierce. "Wait, who are you?" John's voice dripped with disbelief, the calm arrogance now a flickering flame. The woman stepped forward, her eyes glinting with determination. "I'm here to put an end to this, once and for all." "What do you mean?" Robert questioned, heart racing. Something was shifting in the air, and it felt alive, electric with possibilities. "I'm not just here for the drama." She took a breath, and for a split second, the tension lifted, the whole room hanging on her words. "I'm Emily's mother." Silence fell like a curtain dropping abruptly. Amanda staggered back, eyes wide, disbelief mingling with an unexpected sorrow. "What?" she whispered, a tremor slicing through her voice. "Yes, Amanda." The woman's gaze locked onto hers, heavy with a burden carried for far too long. I didn't die. I was forced into hiding. The schemes. John knew I was still alive, and he used you all as pawns in this sick game. More gasps punctuated the air as the guests shifted uneasily, absorbing the whirlwind of information blowing through the room. The fabric of their lives seemed to unravel right before their eyes. Megan turned. Confusion splayed across her face. "But I thought you chose to walk away." "I had no choice." The woman's voice cracked, filled with raw emotion. "He drove me to it, and I've been watching from the shadows. All of this, your lives, everything, was his doing." "No!" John exploded. But there was a crack in his facade. There was fear in his eyes. "Is that why you tried to destroy us?" Robert said, his voice a low growl, anger thrumming beneath the surface. "No," John shouted defiantly. But doubt whispered through the crowd. "We were just protecting the family legacy." The tension snapped. At that moment, amidst the chaos, a sudden realization hit Robert with the force of a slap. "You didn't just lose an empire, John. You've lost your humanity." And then, just like that, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. A sinister laugh echoed from the depths. It wasn't just John. Something darker lurked beyond. The shadows swallowed the room as the trembling continued. Shattering glass echoed down the hallways, an unseen force unleashing chaos. Panic erupted as the revelation of betrayal sunk deeper, invading their thoughts. There was more to this vicious plot. When the lights finally returned, the space had changed, charged with a new urgency. They were trapped, fate entwined with unrelenting horrors yet to be revealed. Robert felt the walls close around them, constricting any flicker of hope. And as they stood there, hearts racing, caught in the crosshairs of twisted loyalties and unimaginable truths, one question loomed large. Who were the real enemies? The room felt like it was closing in. The tension thick and electric. Robert's heart raced as Megan's revelation echoed in his mind. Twin sisters? Revenge? It was enough to shatter the status quo, leaving uncertainty hanging like stale air. Amanda looked stricken, frozen in disbelief, while John's facade began to crack. "You're lying," he spat, his voice shaky. The guests surged forward, leaning in to catch every word, breath bated in anticipation. "Am I?" Megan's voice trembled, each syllable heavy with emotion. "I only wanted to protect you, Amanda. He manipulated us both." Then, just as the weight of those words hung in the air, the ground heaved violently. A deafening roar echoed from above, rattling the walls and the chandeliers, now swaying ominously. A flurry of panic erupted as people screamed, shoving toward the exits. Robert tightened his grip on Lucas, who pressed against him. Fear etched into every line of his face. "Megan, we need to get out," Robert shouted over the chaos, but she shook her head fervently, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, wait! You don't understand!" she cried, desperation clawing at her voice. "It's not just John." But before she could finish, the roof above them cracked open like an egg, sending showers of dust and debris crashing down. A figure plunged from the shattered ceiling, spiraling through the air, landing heavily near John. Gasps filled the room as the figure stood, dazed but defiant. A woman with dark, wild hair, clothing torn and soiled. "Emily," Amanda gasped, recognition dawning. "No," John cried, shielding himself. "You shouldn't be here." But Emily pushed past him, breathless and wide-eyed. "I've come to take back what belongs to me," she shouted, and everyone stayed rooted in shock. Robert squinted, trying to wrap his head around the chaos. "What do you mean?" he managed to ask, but Emily's face was set with fierceness. "You've all been pawns in a game none of us truly understood. John isn't just after revenge. He's trying to fulfill a dark prophecy." The crowd murmured, confused and scared, tension pulsating around them. What prophecy? Robert asked, needing to know amidst the uncertainty crashing all around them. Emily locked her gaze with Amanda, fierce and unwavering. You don't know the truth about your mother's legacy. She is your mother too! John's voice boomed through the din, desperation palpable. I had to keep you all safe. That's why I made the decisions I did. No, you made choices based on your own greed. Emily shouted back. You sacrificed who we are for your twisted ambition. Then, with a suddenness that stopped every heart, the ground quaked violently again. This time, it felt as if the earth was splitting apart. The crowd shrieked, people stumbling over one another, desperately seeking an escape. The walls groaned, and a thick dust cloud billowed overhead. In that chaotic moment, something incredible happened. A blinding light burst from the center of the room, illuminating all their faces in a pale glow. The light pulsed, growing brighter, drowning out the panic. Robert shielded his eyes, trying to see through the glare. When the light dimmed, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, regal, with an air of authority. It's time, the figure announced, voice powerful yet serene. The truth must come forth. Destinies will intertwine, and none will walk unscathed. And in that instant, something weighty shifted in the air. Everything changed, as the foundation of their reality cracked beneath them. Faces twisted in shock. Robert felt his chest tighten again, breaths coming in shallow gasps. Could they really be standing at the precipice of something beyond their comprehension? But before he could grasp what it all meant, Emily stepped forward, locking eyes with him and revealing her truth, eyes wide with fear and courage. I know who you really are, Robert. And just like that, the world exploded into new revelations, leaving them all questioning what had been hidden in plain sight. Every tear, every betrayal, all leading to this moment. But what did Emily mean? The light shimmered around them, and in its glow, everything felt uncertain and raw, with one lingering question. Who were they really? The room was teetering on the edge of chaos, emotions swirling like a storm. Robert's heart pounded as Emily stepped forward, revealing. The truth hung heavy in the air, and for a moment everything felt suspended. Amanda, listen, Emily pleaded, her voice cracking. Your mother, she's the reason all of this is happening. She wanted to protect you from the legacy that your father has twisted into this nightmare. Tears streamed down Amanda's face as disbelief mixed with confusion. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why did this have to be a secret? John sneered, desperation creeping into his tone. Enough of this nonsense. You have no idea what you're talking about. But the tremors in his voice betrayed his fear. Then the chandelier above them shook violently. People gasped and stumbled backward. Robert instinctively shielded Lucas, feeling the weight of impending doom as the walls around them seemed to inch closer. Everyone out now, he shouted, urgency clawing at his throat. But before they could move, Emily shouted, No! If we don't stand together now, we won't survive this. As panic surged, the lights flickered and buzzed, casting ghostly shadows across everyone. Silence fell. Every second stretched on. Hearts pounded. Breaths held. I'm tired of running, Amanda cried. If this is a legacy we have to face together, I won't hide anymore. She stepped forward, bravery igniting the air around her like a spark. The moment seemed to crystallize. Robert felt a surge of solidarity, his chest tightening with purpose. Together, he echoed, grasping Lucas's hand tighter, feeling the courage bloom in his son. And then, crack, the ceiling above them roared, disintegrating into dust and rubble. They had to move. The cries of the crowd erupted again, a collective surge toward the exits. Yet Emily stood resolute, a barrier against their fear. Listen, John, she shouted above the din. You need to face this, Not just for us, but for yourself. John faltered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. But no one was ready to let him off the hook so easily. The crowd stirred angrily, murmurs of disdain confusing the air. "I lost everything because of you," one guest shouted from the back. Another echoed in agreement. "You'll pay for this." Fear and rage collided, but the darkness from John was palpable. In this moment, Robert saw the flickering light of justice. "Stop," he commanded, voice cutting through the chaos. "We are done hiding. We stand for each other now." As the dust settled and the light illuminated their faces, Robert felt a glimmer of hope weave through the terror in the room. After all, truth has a way of breaking through, exposing every hidden deed, every betrayal. And just as they steadied themselves, the ground shook fiercely again. But this time, Robert was ready. Fueled by the voices of those around him, they would confront John together. No more secrecy. With one final push, Amanda shouted, "This is our legacy, not yours. We choose what comes next." The walls trembled and John scowled, cornered like a rat. "You think you've won? This is far from over." Yet as he spoke, reality twisted painfully. The clarity of their unity seemed to light a fire beneath the chaos. The shadows shrank. The oppressive air lightened, shifting with whispers of change. In that moment, Robert took a step forward, gripping Lucas's shoulder. "Then let's uncover the truth together," he said. Determination steeled his heart, knowing the fight would continue. As they gathered strength, the crowd around them mirrored their resolve, rallying together against the darkness that had loomed too long. And with a final tremor, the air crackled, a promise that their story wasn't over, just beginning. But amidst the uncertainty, one truth remained. They had ignited a fire, a flame of unity against everything that sought to tear them apart. Now, as darkness closed in, the only question left was, would they be able to withstand the storm? As the camera panned out, capturing the raw emotion, people began to gather in solidarity, faces etched with determination and hope, igniting even what had seemed hopeless. Listen up, folks. If you've been captivated by this intense saga, you must subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support us. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your